House of the Dragon is finally back with season two. Again, season two, episode one dropped Sunday night. It's not only is it nice to be back in the world of Game of Thrones, but it was just nice to have an HBO show that I want to watch on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, maybe I just haven't been paying enough attention. I don't know if there has been like a new show that like HBO's been dropping on Sunday nights at this time slot or, throughout the past year or so. But it doesn't seem like it's ever been anything that has been like water cooler kind of talk kind of show. I mean, for a long time there, it felt like whatever, a show like a season of Game of Thrones would end on a Sunday with a Sunday night run. And then the next show would come like Watchmen or something. And it was like always something. I was like, oh, okay, whatever's on Sunday night, I'm watching, like White Lotus or what have you.
Yeah. I think because we basically got the last season of Succession right after, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Or was it White Lotus right after?
I can't remember.
But they're so quick.
Both.
Yeah, they're so quick and short. So it's like, again, between COVID and writer and actor strikes that's been going on, everything is just on such a delay. So it's like, we had House of the Dragon, and then we had the last season of Succession, and then we had White Lotus, and now we've been waiting. We have been waiting with bated breath for the return of House of the Dragon.
Yeah. It's been a while, so it's back. I'm going to start off with saying one thing that I've already heard some opinions about it. Like, let's start with the opening credits, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think I talked about this last season, and I am still of the same mindset. Like, I am a fan of the fact that they continue to use the same theme for this show. It seems like there was some people wondering if it still might change up, which I'm kind of shocked that anyone actually thought they would change the music, like from season 1 to season 2. Like, I didn't think there was a chance of that whatsoever. And I still like the idea that they're using this Game of Thrones theme for every show, I guess, in the Game of Thrones universe. I say that, and I mean, we don't know what they're going to do with the next show. It's like Don't Get an Egg. I don't know if that's what they're calling it or if they're calling that show something else. But I like that they're using that theme for these two shows so far, because like that's the theme of this world for me, and I just enjoy it. And I just wanted to put that out there. But they did change the whole title sequence otherwise quite drastically. And I don't know about you guys, but I was a big fan of it. I liked it a lot, actually. Michelle, what did you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I like the music. I agree with you. Like, I think that is the Game of Thrones music. And I like that it is transitioned to this show, and I hope it will continue on to the next one. But no, the title sequence opening, they use the same production company that they've used in the past, who's done quite a lot of opening sequences for HBO. And so, yeah, when the needlework started on the screen, I was like, oh, wow. Like, immediately. It's especially because it was like a canvas color. So it's very bright and vivid. Like, the living room lit up with light from the television. And I was like, oh, geez, okay. But no, I really like it. I think it was really quite beautiful, and it really was very nuanced, and it tells you what's kind of going on. And I think it leads more into just an elder age, which this is in the Game of Thrones world. And so I think it just, I don't know, it worked for me, and I'm a fan of it. I like the needlepoint for sure. I hope that actually stays as the show continues, that they don't switch it back. Because I think the other one was fine, but it seemed very similar to the original Game of Thrones show. And it was kind of really dark. And there were times I was like, I don't know all these symbols all the time. I don't know all of the house logos, emblems. So there were times I would be like, I don't know what that one's supposed to represent, or the person is supposed to represent, or the house is representing. So this just seemed a lot more clear. You can go, oh, okay, that's Rhaenyra, that's this person. Okay, like you can kind of follow the story that it's kind of literally weaving, sewing together through the sequence. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say the season 1, like opening credits, for someone especially like me who didn't read books and isn't like super knowledgeable about all things Game of Thrones, I was watching the imagery and just kind of like, know like the meaning behind any of these symbols or what's going on. And at least this new one, I'm like, this is a little easier to follow, like this history of the Targaryens kind of thing it seems to be doing.
Yeah.
Bobby, any thoughts on the new opening credits? Like, dislike, care?
Okay, so I guess I initially had a few different thoughts going through my head when it happened. First thought was the same way that you were thinking, in terms of they kept the theme song the same as it was from Game of Thrones. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm glad that's still the same. I like this music. I was curious to see if they would change it, because there had been I won't say how many people, but it seemed like I saw enough people who had issues with it being the same that they might have considered changing it. But I was glad to see that they didn't. So that was the first thought I had. The second thought was when you start seeing the tapestry and how it's being done, I was like, oh, okay, that's different. That's interesting. And then the third thought was, okay, well, let me follow along with what it's doing to see if it's going to reveal anything for the show or this episode, or what might happen in the future. And I can't say that I noticed anything, which isn't to say that there wasn't anything. I just didn't really say that I noticed anything in particular that stood out, other than it seemed like it was kind of telling this history of things and leading up to where we are. So there could have been stuff in there, but I'm not as deeply enriched in everything to know all the different places and the names and stuff to know if there was something in there that should have been noteworthy. So those were my first pretty much three thoughts when I saw it, other than, okay, that's cool. I don't think I got overly hyped by the fact that it was different. And because I felt like if they do something with it and make it change each week, then I would watch it. But outside of that, I would probably skip right to the episode. So I felt like, okay, this was cool that they changed something within the opening credits, but I didn't get overly into it. And I think it was Michelle, and I could correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but did you send something in our chat a few weeks ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, in regards to there's one company that does all the opening sequences for a lot of these big shows?
Yeah.
Was
So I forgot what the name of the production company is, but yeah, they did the one for The Last of Us, which is and that's an amazing opening sequence. They did the original Game of Thrones. They do White Lotus's opening sequence. There's quite a few. It's basically all the shows that we enjoy right now. Currently, they've basically done those opening title sequences. And I think they do an excellent job of them, honestly, in my opinion. And they were like a company that I guess was kind of unknown, and then HBO reached out to them for Game of Thrones season 1, way back when, and so they've just catapulted, basically.
Yeah, and so I guess that was my fourth thought. It was like, is this must still be the same company? Because then I was thinking about how this kind of it doesn't look similar, but it gave me the same sort of vibe as when I was seeing something like Shogun, or even
oh yeah, they did Shogun too.
Yeah, or what's the show on Apple TV? Severance. For some reason that popped in my head as well. So I don't know if they did that one, but it just kind of, I can see how if they didn't do it, then there's other companies that saw what they're doing and they're starting to have these kind of openings now to different shows. Because even when I was watching, I want to say it's a new show on Apple TV with Joel Edgerton. That has an opening that's kind of in that same sort of vein.
Dark Matter.
So it's like, oh, okay. Yes, thanks. And so it's like, okay, now all these shows are starting to have a similar sort of opening kind of thing. And we had almost seemed like we had went away from like openings for a little while, to where it was just almost just the name of the show and a tone or something. Mm-hmm. But now we're having these opening sequences that are similar in a way.
Kind of like Acolyte is doing, which is no real title sequence at all.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see. Yeah, as a society, I feel like we were starting to get away from title sequences, and now because of certain companies making really amazing title sequences, we've kind of gotten really back into it. So there's one company that seems to do the ones for the Apple shows. They did like the Morning Show, Severance, and gosh, I can't think. I want to say it's the Dark Matter one, or maybe it's what's the one that was Silo. So those are done by one production company, but then this production company does a lot of the HBO ones. They did Shogun, and there's another FX show that they did for, and you can see for them they definitely have a style in their digital look that they have. They're definitely weaving together a story through the patterns they're using, and they basically, I guess, figure out how they want the effect to look. Oh, they did I think they did the title sequence for The Crown, and then also they did The Crown, and then also I kind of want to say Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. And so if you think about Rings of Power, the way it looks, and you think about the way The Crown looks, and you think about the way The Last of Us looks and Game of Thrones, like all they definitely have a look to them, and you can tell that's that production company's, like, that's their I don't know, it's just it's the vibe they're putting down. I don't have a good way to explain it, but I will say, like, they're very creative. I think they look really nice, and I know that even though they are kind of similar from show to show, they're very distinctive and they own the show that it's representing, which I think is really nice. And I mean, not to keep going on a tangent, but I'm looking forward to each new episode that we get for House of the Dragon to see the tapestry change just ever so subtly for things that could happen in that episode. So I will be watching the title sequences for each of the next 7 episodes.
Yeah, I'll be curious if it changes much, like based on what it's doing so far. I think if it does change much from episode to episode, it's going to be slight, because a lot of the tapestry, right, is stuff that's happened way in the past, building up to now. But no, I think that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, this is all speculatory, but my theory is that even in last season, the gates would change and the blood would flow in different directions sometimes to allude to somebody coming into that episode. And then just like the original show, it would go to different realms that you would see going to in that show. So I'm sure there will be a few things, but it's going to be very subtle, I have a feeling.
Right.
But I'm still going to watch it because I think it's just cool. It's just cool to watch.
I always watch opening credits for shows, so it's how I am. So I won't be skipping it.
I'm right there with you. Like, It was funny because I still watch and talk about shows with opening credits that change a little bit. Like watching X-Men 97, like it changes just a little bit with each episode. And but I will say, like, the first day we fired up the first episode for X-Men 97, I was like, oh man, this feels good. Like, I was like, I was like, oh, this just feels nostalgic and wonderful. And like, then I watched the next episode. It's like, do you want to skip the titles? I'm like, hell no, Disney Plus. Why would I do that? You're crazy. Like, Disney Plus, you're drunk. I'm not skipping the opening titles to X-Men. Are you stupid? Like, I was like, no way. So yeah, no, I watch opening sequences for sure.
So I promise we'll actually get into the episode itself.
We
And I just want to make one more comment about title sequences. In that there's this show on Paramount Plus I watched that I've been watching for a few seasons called Evil, and they do this thing where in the opening sequence, when it's the titles, this opening, there's a little banner that comes up at the bottom of the screen that says a little something every week, and it's in regards to skipping the opening credits. It's like, if you skip the opening credits, someone will visit you in your dreams tonight, or so. It says something every week.
Ominous will happen
a little
to you.
something. Yeah, it's very ominous. Every week, and it said something last week about Nancy such and such in Tulsa, Oklahoma skipped last week's credits last week and something happened or something. It's very
That's
funny.
awesome.
It's it makes me watch their opening thing, but yeah, it's very creative. So I do give kudos when you're creative and doing something with the opening title sequences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was even going to say something else about the music again, but we really have talked about
Tangent.
the opening credits for quite a while. And there's a lot more to this show.
There's so much
than
more
the
to this
opening
show.
titles.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about the first scene yet.
Well, hey, the first episode's here. I mean, what did you guys think? Did it feel like the show you remember? Is it any different? Are you happy? Not so happy?
Yeah.
Yes. To
Oh
all?
man, I loved it. Yes, I loved it. I mean, from the moment that it comes back on, it just felt once again, this is just one of those shows that you feel like is a standard in terms of how it makes you feel a part of that era of that scene. It shows these big epic landscapes and these characters and costumes and their accents and everything just seems like it's so top notch the way it's produced from a standpoint of just a visual standpoint. And I immediately felt back into like I was back into this world again. And then of course that opening sequence when they're at the in the north and they're at the wall and I could honestly watch what's his name Kagan Stark Kragan Stark something like that. I could watch a show with him because he was great and he didn't do much but talk.
Right.
So, but I was like, he seems awesome. I would like to follow a show with just this guy and see what he gets up to at the wall. But yeah, it just felt like really coming back into this world. And again, just the debauchery and everything that they get up to is in is just embedded in this show. And you would think, okay, some shows when they get back, they kind of start off slow and ramp up, but they come out swinging, and you get caught up in the every aspect of this show. Just from it doesn't have to do much. There doesn't have to be a ton of action going on. There doesn't have to be a ton of anything going on, but dialogue sometimes, and you're just completely hanging on every single word. And they do it so well. And it's just obviously they have a level of source material to go off of. So that's always helpful. But just in general, just the way it plays out, you just find yourself so invested. And within this episode, you really for me, I was really waiting to see what Rhaenyra was going to do and see how they wanted to come back at the House Green because of what happened to her son. So for me, just getting that answer in the most gruesome and vicious way is satisfying just to come back to see and like, okay, here we are. We're right back into it again. Let's go. Let's water cooler Mondays and waiting for Sunday nights to come to where you get to see the new episode of House of the Dragon. Is what I've been waiting however long for, and knowing that it's back now. It just I can't wait to see how this story unfolds. And obviously, people who've read the books know a lot more, but we've had that situation with Game of Thrones as well. So it's a lot of exciting stuff to look forward to just because we know that this is building towards this war and we know we're going to get some dragon fights and stuff like that, but the groundwork that it's laying, I'm all here for it and I'm just eating it up. So for me, having this first episode come back, I was just loving it. And it's again, I think that come towards the end of the year when it's time for the Emmys, at this point there might be other people in contention, but for me, it's going to be a horse race between Shogun and House of the Dragon because of how top notch those two shows seem to be to me, especially since I've watched Shogun and even just this with this first episode of House of the Dragon, it's just coming back so strong that yeah, I could easily see there's going to be some competition between those two going forward once we get into the Emmy race.
Michelle, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to just echo what Bobby said,
How dare
but
you.
I know. I loved the episode. I thought it was really good. It was eerily comforting to like be back at Winterfell and the Wall, and like even just to hear the Stark kind of talk in that northerner Stark kind of like
Accent
accent
thing,
that they have created thanks to Sean Bean. Like it was just like, oh yeah, okay, this is nice. Like, I mean, yeah, we are looking over the wall and looking at the vastness of the wilderness, and we know what actually will lie in that wilderness within the next couple hundreds of years. But it's cool, it's great, like it's fine. Like it was just kind of comforting to be back in that realm. But what was interesting was just, I think what was kind of nice was realizing pretty quickly, where it was picking up from the last episode at the end of season 1. And I was like, oh wow, it's only been like a day or two like since we left. Like I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fast. Or this is just, we're not leaping in time. Like this is like right where we left off at, like almost exactly, like same week. And so that was kind of interesting. But yeah, like they get right back into, the butting of heads of egos, back at House Black. And then you have just debauchery and randomness happening over in Castle Green. And like, it just makes you go, man, you guys, you just don't miss a beat. You just go right into it, and we just are enveloped in that world with these characters again, and it was just really kind of nice. But I think overall the episode played out really well. I think it really gets you caught up with kind of the falling out of what occurred very quickly from last episode, and it really puts you in Rhaenyra's headspace. I mean, she says like. She says 3 words like that, and that was it. That's all she said the whole episode. And it puts you in her emotional state, I think, pretty quickly. Like, just watching her go seek, what she needs to have as proof for her dealing with her grief of her son. And you have that scene with her on the beach, and her dragon is also weeping because she's emotionally upset. And then her anger, she goes back to her home, and they have their little council meeting, and that's all she says is she's just like, yeah, bring me him, I'm done. Like you could just tell like the anger and the emotion is just, she's like, I'm over it, let's do this. And yeah, it was pretty intense. I was like, wow. And then those last 10 minutes of that episode were kind of nail biting, because you're like, how is this even going to play out? Like the whole time I'm watching these 2 guys who I guess in the books are called Blood and Cheese.
Yeah.
And Cheese being the rat catcher, and then Blood being the
guard,
guard, the heavy. Watching them kind of make their way through the castle, and I'm watching it, I'm like, how are these 2 idiots going to pull this off? Like, you can tell, I'm like, this is not going to go very well. This is obviously not. And, like, I didn't read the books, so I don't have that reference of knowledge. So I'm watching it going, these 2 idiots are not going to complete what they're supposed to be doing, obviously. And then very quickly, it's like, oh, wow, they're really not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Oh, wow, this is getting really dark really fast. Oh, Jesus. Oh, wow, she has to pick a child. Oh, God, it's Sophie's choice. Oh, Jesus. Like, you're watching it, you're like, oh, my God, this is not happening. Like, I'm House Black for sure, but I also think it's kind of messed up to make a person choose a child. And then to actually hear the sounds of that child being murdered, it's kind of, I was like, oh, yep, this is Game of Thrones. We're back in it. Here we are. Yep, this is what we're doing. Cool. All right, yep, baby, game is on. This is how the Iron Throne gets won, It was just so like, yep, we're back, it's game on here. So no, I thought the episode was really good. I think it brought you back into the world pretty quickly of Westeros, and I am very much looking forward to seeing more. I cannot wait.
I would agree. The show, it's good to be back.
3 for 3.
Yeah. It's not a shocker.
Surprise, surprise. David liked Game of Thrones.
I mean, I don't know about you guys. I definitely wasn't going into this season with any real concern. I mean, I know we lost a showrunner from season one. But even so, I wasn't really thinking, oh man, is there going to be a big drastic change in the feeling of the show because we lost one of the showrunners? Not really. I mean, maybe it's a valid concern, but I really wasn't thinking about that much. And no, the show didn't really skip a beat. It's great. It's like everything you said, Bobby and Michelle. Like, it's nice to have this back and to be back in this routine of watching this on Sundays. It's been so long, and then, you know, kind of consuming a lot of the next day kind of like reaction to the show is just, it's just nice. And
You miss this habitualness of having the Sunday night viewing and then the Monday day chatter.
I do. It's just so good.
You missed it.
It's so good.
David's not a creature of habit at all.
No, not at all. But yeah, no, I thought the episode was quite good. And I mean, considering other shows that we're watching, it was nice to watch a show that's just got some meat to it, that's got some character development to it. And I mean, I may be hinting at a show that I'm actually overall enjoying, but still, like, yeah, if only more shows could be like this, is what I'm getting at. Yeah. No, it's great, and I hate to keep being the last one here and just saying, well, everything you guys said, but really everything you guys have said, I don't have much to add. It's
Well, you can go first on the next section. How about that?
well, I will.
Okay.
Well, you know, David, what's funny about what you said as far as the showrunner thing, it's always interesting to me how stuff like that works, because let's say this first episode didn't do good, like it didn't hit. I guarantee the conversation on Monday would have been, well, they did change showrunners, so maybe there's some issue there, and that would have been the fall guy basically for, you know, getting off to a rough start. But no one has really even mentioned the fact that they had changed showrunners. In any of the different like podcasts or YouTube channels I've seen, no one really has mentioned the fact that showrunners changed and we're still humming right along, that it didn't drop in quality or anything. So the showrunner changed. For one, the showrunner got no kind of love in terms of being able to continue on and still make a good show. But I guarantee it started off rough, that showrunner would have got all the hate. And we do know that it is down, I think it was 22% from the initial first season premiere of the show. But there's no specific rhyme or reason as to why that could have happened. They did mention that the Tony Awards were yesterday, which I'm sure Michelle would love to talk about, but that's not that for this show.
That's not for tonight.
Yeah, it's not for tonight. But I don't think it would have had that drastic of a drop on it as an effect.
No.
But you know, it just probably will gather steam as it goes in. Because I talked to a guy at work who loves the show, and he specifically said that he might wait a few weeks to bank a few episodes before he starts to jump in, because you know, I think a lot of people with the shows where they don't necessarily watch in real time, and they'll just kind of watch it as it's over, or not necessarily feel like they have to be part of the water cooler aspect of it and watching it every week, that they would rather just kind of, especially if they're not big on social media and that they don't have any ways in which it can get spoiled for them, they would rather just kind of watch it all at once as opposed to having to go the week to week route.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few very small factors, and maybe all these little factors lead up to why there was such a drop off. I think having it kind of come out in the summer is an interesting choice, but also I think there's as we said at the very beginning of the show, there are a lot of shows that are restarting this month, let alone just this week. You know, I mean, this month alone literally was like The Acolyte, The Boys, House of the Dragon, The Bear's Coming, like, and that's just 4 shows, and those are major shows that people are watching. And then, yeah, you had the Tony Awards, which while usually the Tony Awards is not a big concern, historically, the last, like, apparently since COVID, each Tony Award each year has gotten higher viewership, which is very interesting to me. But it has, which is great. I mean, I want Broadway to continue to succeed. So there's that. So maybe the Tonys did take a very tiny, itsy bitsy chunk of it. But then I think the big part is kind of what you're saying, Bobby. I think there's kind of a generational divide. There's us old schoolers, like the three of us, that we grew up waiting to watch a show week to week to week. While we might enjoy binging shows from time to time, overall, I think, at least for the three of us in this show, I think we do enjoy kind of that week to week wait and the anticipation and the build and like letting a week to digest what you've seen and to think about what can come. And then there's another generation where, yeah, they like to kind of bank up 2 to 4 episodes and kind of have it so they can kind of just basically watch a movie worth and kind of get that going, and then they'll bank up a couple more and then watch a few more. And that's the way they like to enjoy their media. And I get that too. So I think that's 3 little things that kind of add up. I'm sure there's other things that factor into it dropping off too. But
I wonder too if it's not so much kind of banking episodes to binge it later on kind of thing, but if it's just as we've ever so slightly progressed more and more into a kind of a streaming kind of video on demand kind of mindset versus the like watching this at 9 p.m. on HBO, the channel HBO, like as we're,
right.
I assume most people are watching it on Max as opposed to a HBO channel on their whatever live TV service they have. And maybe it's not just, well, I'm going to wait till a few episodes are banked or the whole season is over and then watch them all. But it's just, well, I don't have to watch it Sunday night. I'll watch it Monday or Tuesday or
yeah,
Wednesday.
I think that's a big factor too. Because, yeah, if you think about it, the original Game of Thrones, when it came out, there still wasn't streaming. So you had to watch it on a cable. Somehow you had to watch it. If you were going to watch it, you're going to watch it on HBO cable, like live.
Right.
That's happening. You know, later seasons of it, you know, streaming came along.
Yeah, I don't remember when HBO Go came along, but
it was, I think it was at least in its 3rd season before HBO Go came along. And so, yeah, I think that's a big factor is now with the advent of streaming, you know, if you're like, oh, wow, you know, I have tickets to this sporting event on Sunday night. Oh, House of Dragon. Oh, I guess I'll have to watch it on Monday. You know, like, I think that's a factor for sure. I agree.
And I mean, no shade at the Tonys. We were watching the Tonys, and I
right
would love
up to
to
9
watch
o'clock.
the whole episode. But I have a hard time believing that was a big factor in the viewership of House of the Dragon. But I could be wrong. And hey, that's great for the Tonys.
Yeah.
I think it's great that people are watching the Tonys.
Like I said, like I find it fascinating that basically the 21, 22, 23, 24 Tonys each year, the viewership has gone up of it. And
Right.
I think that's excellent. Do I think that a large portion of people that watch House of Dragon were giving up House of Dragon for the Tonys?
I mean, I think I said that. I think I said that night. I'm like, Tonys, you picked the wrong night to have your show or
Yeah, they should have done it like the week. They should have done it like the week before or the week after. They just didn't. Tonys, I mean, and you say, when we say that, I feel like most award shows are usually on the Sunday night or a Monday night. So maybe they should have done it on a Monday night.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well,
No.
before we run too much out of time, since we still have another show to talk about, I know one thing, Bobby. You off air, you hinted at something you wanted to discuss about this show, and I've been curious ever since. Well, what is it?
Yeah, so I think it was I don't know if it was the same night, but I know that definitely within the time frame of during the week when I had a chance to start looking at some of the reactions out there to the episode and what they were thinking, something that I didn't even think twice about within the episode seemed to be a point of contention that was popping up in different reactions and podcasts that I was listening to. So it all centers around the boy that gets killed in the
Okay.
episode. So one thing happens when Damon hires these two guys or to go after them or go after Aemon to kill him, one of the guys, Cheese, I think it is, he says, "Well, what happens if we can't find him?" And Damon doesn't say anything. He kind of gives a look, but then it goes to the next scene.
Right.
So the point of contention seems to be whether or not they messed up and just killed somebody that they just thought they could be able to kill because it would be fine, or if Damon may have told them off camera, well, if you can't find Aemon, then kill whoever is the next in line or one of the other boys that you can find. And so there is a lot of people who believe that they messed up. And I think that seemed to be the predominant theory that I saw out there, that they just messed up and they didn't think about who they were killing, and they didn't kill Aemon. They didn't follow instructions. And then there's maybe less people who think that Damon probably told them just to kill one of them, even if you couldn't find Aemon. So I'm very curious as to where you guys fell on that when you were watching the episode.
I'll go real quick. So okay. I think when I was watching the episode, I guess I was kind of going, okay, well, they are clearly trying to find the correct person, but obviously it wasn't panning out. And it seemed to me like they very quickly were like, okay, plan B. They didn't say that, but that kind of seemed like what was kind of happening, because they quickly went to a completely different room. Like they clearly made a judgment call very, very swiftly. And I think what sealed it for me was when the one kind of was like, oh, a prince for a prince.
Or son for a son.
Or a son for a son. That's what it was. And while that could be taken for the other way, obvious, the main way, it could also just be, this works too. Now, whether or not that was just their interpretation or Damien actually saying something to them and we just didn't see that scene, I don't know. I don't know. I think that'll play out probably pretty soon, because I have a feeling he's going to have to answer to Rhaenyra pretty soon for this F-up. So that's going to be interesting. But I think they basically... I don't actually think that they messed up. I think they were kind of... In a way, it seemed like, this is the best we could do is we're just going to kill this kid. But I think it was like, this is the best we're going to do. It's kind of like, okay, well, plan A is not working out. We're going to plan B and we're just going to kill another kid.
I mean, that's basically, I think, the way as I was watching the episode, that's the way I interpreted what was happening, that they weren't finding him. Mm-hmm. I definitely don't interpret it as just a mess up, like they weren't paying enough attention about who they were supposed to kill. I really don't buy that argument at all. I took it as they can't find him, but hey, this is a son in the line of succession, and it would be a good kill versus,
not.
Now, because I have heard this argument, I guess, not argument, but I've heard this theory since the show has aired as well. I think it was brought up on the official Game of Thrones podcast. I know they brought it up that I think they were saying they believe that, he said something to them off camera right after that shot. And I've been curious now to at least, I would happily rewatch the whole episode, but I'm definitely I'm curious to rewatch that scene in particular to see, is there a look there that insinuates that there's something he's going to say, but then we cut away from it. And I could see that, but I haven't rewatched it. And I don't know, because my first thought is, if that is the case, I don't know if the show did a good enough job of kind of hinting at that, because I didn't think about that at all when I watched it the first time. Maybe I was daydreaming for a second or something, I don't know, but it definitely didn't cross my mind as I was watching the episode that he was gonna give them an alternative plan. But that would make sense based on the way they react to the two children in the room, because at first, he's holding the queen, and Blood is like, hey, like he said a son for a son. Like, what are you doing? And then, he has to point to the kids. But as soon as he sees the kids, he definitely seems to be like, oh, okay, perfect. And again, my read as I was watching it was that they were just like, well, this will do. But I could definitely see that he did say something to them off camera. But
Yeah.
I'm curious to rewatch the scene to see if that kind of is hinted at more than I realized as I watched it the first time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think I'm just waiting for the next episode because that Daemon and Rhaenyra are going to have a huge,
Oh, absolutely.
huge fight. Like, she's going to be like, what were you clearly weren't thinking. Like, there was obviously no thought. What were you doing? Thanks, man. Like,
Right.
so I'm looking forward to watching them argue about this situation.
Yeah.
And I'm genuinely curious as to the fallout that's going to happen at House Green. Like, I'm genuinely curious to see how everyone's going to react. And I'm like, and not even just as big as like seeing how Aegon is going to react to his son being murdered. And I mean, I have a theory already about, I can't think of her name, Hightower, the now Dowager Queen, played by Olivia Cook. I already kind of
Alicent or
Allison. I already kind of think I
terrible
know.
with the names,
I think
but
I
I
already
think
kind of know
that's
how Allison's going to react. But there's a part of me I'm like, wow, like the mother, the queen, Helena. I think she's already kind of like loopy and mystical and weird in her own little way. I'm like, how much is she going to regress into herself? Like, because of this, how much PTSD is she going to come out of after hearing her child being unalived? Like, that's not going to go well for her. And the fallout from this will be I'm like foaming at the mouth. Like, I want to know.
You mentioned the greens and we have the blacks, and
Well-
it made me think about like, how this show, especially this show, is being marketed this season about Team Black versus Team Green, right?
Right.
And
Thanks, New York City.
we've only seen one episode so far, but there's no doubt they're kind of like, marketing this show in this way of like, which team are you on, Team Black or Team Green? And I was watching this and I was thinking about this right afterwards, and I was like, is there anybody who's Team Green? Like, is the show in any way to you guys, other than the fact that obviously someone on Team Black may have ordered two guys to kill a very innocent young child, which is terrible.
Right.
But I don't know. To me, the show doesn't really like give me much reason to be Team Green. I'm curious to see as the season plays out how much that changes. And I think that's the great thing about this show, is that there is a lot of nuance, and I could very easily go, oh wow, no, maybe I am Team Green. But like,
Right.
as it stands right now, and I go into the season, I'm like, of course I'm Team Black. Is there a choice? Like,
Right.
and I'm wondering, am I crazy, or do you guys like get what I'm saying, or agree with me at all, or I don't know. Am I making sense?
I mean, yeah, it seems very much set up for you to be Team Black, even just from the first season, and even because from the audience perspective, we know what Viserys had said to Alicent,
Right.
or not Alicent,
Not
but
Allison,
to
but Rhaenyra's.
Rhaenyra. Yeah, and so we know, and so you can't help but to be Team Black from that perspective. Now, as you said, things can change, because if you watch Game of Thrones, you've seen characters you hated that you start to like after a while, because they do things and they start to have some sort of redemption arc. So anything can change. Good characters can go bad characters can go good, all those things. But as it stands right now, to me, the only people that are Team Green are either trolls or psychopaths. So I really don't know why you would ever be Team Green
All
at
right,
this
so
point
not
right
crazy.
now. But maybe they set this whole Team Green, Team Black up because they know what's coming and that there will be
Right.
more of a reason to feel like you might be more one side than the other. But as of right now, no, I just can't see why you would be Team Green at all.
Yeah, I mean, the way the show is given to you, how can you not root for Team Black? How can you not want that house to be the house that continues on? Now, I'm saying all this, again, I never read the books. I have absolutely no idea what the heck's going to happen. Maybe people that have read the books are like, I don't know why anybody would be on Team Black, because obviously Team Green's the one that continues on through the lineage. And they might be on. They might just know that. I don't even know if that's the way the books go. Again, I'm totally speculating. So, but yeah, like I don't know why you'd be Team Green. And as far as like characters with eventually getting redeeming arcs, that does occur. I still think I would like to yeet Sir Christian Cole into the mouth of a dragon, but otherwise, like
He's pretty awful.
oh my god,
He's
he is
awful.
the worst.
He's awful.
I effing hate Christian Cole. He's such
Yeah.
a
He's a hypocrite.
He's such
He
a hypocrite.
says one thing and then he does another.
Repetitively
And
does
same with
another.
Allison. She calls out Rhaenyra for one thing, and she does the exact same thing. So she's just as bad.
And
but
Alicent's a
yeah,
hypocrite. But at the same time, though,
Yeah,
Alicent,
Alicent,
though, like, I think she's a character that she has a nice depth for her character, and I think her arc is going to be continuously changing all the time, just due to
I can see that.
her being a mother, her being the head of the house, her basically being at some point Otto ain't going to live that much longer. That man's getting old, so she's kind of carrying on this Hightower lineage basically. So, and I think deep down, Alicent and Rhaenyra really do want to be in a better situation with each other. I don't know if that's going to come back after the way this last episode just ended. It could be a very rough road, and I doubt that it's going to happen because I feel like that bridge didn't just burn. I think it completely imploded and is completely gone. But we'll see. Maybe they will rebuild that bridge. I don't know. And that's what's interesting is because the way that they write this show, the characters do have room for growth, a lot of them, and they are very interesting and fascinating to watch as the series continues on. So yeah, it's it's Game of Thrones, baby. I mean, it's really, I hate to just be like that's the default, but it's the Game of Thrones. You either are in the game or you're not. Like get your head into it because stuff gets real quick around this place. That's for sure. So, yeah.
And I will say because I didn't really give my point of view on that whole thing with the kid getting killed.
Oh yeah, I was curious
did
about that.
see when I watched it, my initial thought was that Daemon told them that if you don't see Aemon, then just kill whoever else you can get your hands on that's part of the lineage that could be king. And so just because of the way to me it cut, and because as soon as the scene cut, I was like, yeah, what happens if they don't find him? So in my head, it was a question, and it didn't get
you're already
answered
in the
by him
castle.
that
You're
moment.
already doing this.
Yes. Yeah. So I was like, so he didn't say anything. So now I'm left to wonder, what would they do if they don't find him?
Right.
And so I was thinking that, and then also knowing Daemon and how he is as a character, he is quick tempered and flies off the handle and impulsive about a lot of different things. So to me, it makes perfect sense that he would just be like, well, if you don't find Aemon, then kill one of the other sons if you can find them.
He's an interesting character because it's like on the surface, it doesn't seem like he grieves any of the deaths that have occurred in his life,
yeah.
But at the same time, I think this is the way he deals with grief. He's vengeful and he has anger, and I think his way of dealing with it is to get revenge. And so for him, somebody in that castle needed to die. Like, I'm sure for him, he was like, obviously, I want to go after this one, but I'll take what I can take. Because I think for him, that's the way he deals with his grief. That was going to make him feel better. But now he's going to have to go back to his wife.
Yeah, and you know that's going to be a big blow up. But
Oh, I can't
the one
wait to
thing
watch.
that I will say too is that even though I didn't necessarily see that coming as far as the young child being killed, you always feel like you have to brace yourself for at least one unexpected main character death when it comes to the Game of Thrones series and now House of the Dragon. So I feel like I'm going to be bracing every episode because they come randomly. It's not like,
Yeah.
oh, the season finale, you know someone's gonna die. No, they don't wait till the season finale, and they do it whenever in a random episode, at a random time. So I'm just waiting at some point that one of these characters we won't be following their journey any longer, and it'll be like a big shocking kind of thing of a death. But
Yeah.
I don't know who it could be because it could literally be anyone. Ned Stark proves that it could literally be anyone at any time. So I'm just waiting because I know I know it's coming at some point.
Yeah, you're either playing the Game of Thrones or you're not, and you're not. You're probably gonna die. But yeah, like I said, like Otto Hightower is getting old, so we never know what's gonna happen there. And Otto, he little Otto, he's old school, and the new king, he's not. So yeah, that could go. He could bye his grandpa pretty. I don't think he would blink an eye if he wanted to do that. And then, I mean, obviously, I have no warm feelings for Sir Christian Cole. Like I said, that dude could get yeeted into the mouth of a dragon at any point in time, and I'd be fine with that. So that could happen, and that'd be fine with me. But, you never know who's going to die. I think the one death that is as weird as it sounds, it's probably going to be like, if it happens, it's going to make me be like, man, I love that character. It's going to be the queen that never was, honestly. Like, if she dies, all I could say is I hope she goes out in a blaze of glory on the battlefield on her dragon. Because if that woman dies any other way, it's just not going to be dignified. And it just makes me so like, God, please don't kill her. And she deserves just the best death. And I know I have a horrible feeling she's going to get a death, be it this season or next. But like, man, it's got to be good. Like, if it's not, I'm going to be so bummed. Don't die in a stupid way, please. So
I agree with you there. Like, you started saying that, like, about, like, oh, if there's one character that I'll be so upset on, and immediately my brain is like, who could she be talking about? And as soon as you said her, I'm like, oh, yeah, no, she's a badass.
She's a badass, dude.
And, yeah. No, like, I agree. I would have a hard time. This show is definitely the one show that has proved itself that is willing to do anything, and there's no, there's nothing holding the show back from doing something just crazy. But I agree. I'd have a hard time believing they would give her a death if she is going to die that is like pathetic. Like a rat just kills her in her sleep or something, Like, I just... Right. But you never know.
Yeah, the Game of Thrones, baby. It's tough. Westeros is tough. It don't play.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I had to step out for a second, so I missed a little bit of what you guys discussed, but so far I don't think we really have anything to add unless you guys do about House of the Dragon so far.
Winter is coming.
I have one other question.
Yeah,
which is it's in regards to the line of succession. So let's say his son didn't die, Aegon's son didn't die. If Aegon dies, does his son become king, or does Aemon become king because he's the oldest brother after?
So, if you're going by British rules, technically the king's son would be the next in the line of succession. And if there's no son, and again, I'm going based off like British monarchy here. If there's no son, then it would go to the next male sibling in the king's line. So then it would go to his brother, to Aegon, right? The names are Aemond. So it would go to Aemond. But from what I understand, the king and queen actually end up having 3 children based on the books.
Spoilers, Michelle.
Spoilers. That's a spoilers that was given to us actually, I think, by HBO. So I was kind of like, okay, I'm cool with that. Yeah, apparently there is another child for them. They're gonna have a rainbow child. That's horrible. Sorry. Yeah, so apparently that's happening. But no, technically, I guess if you go off British rules, that's how it would go down. But as we know in Westeros, I guess a female could technically be the next in line. So I guess in theory, I guess his daughter could get it over his brother. But I guess he'd have to make that declaration. But we know how well that went for the last female. Well,
Right.
last 2 females,
Last 2.
technically. So, you know, hey, we're just killing it out there in Westeros, us females.
Well, if that's all you guys have, I think that's going to do it for our thoughts on House of the Dragon. It's an 8-episode season. I know it's shorter this season than it was last season. But at least we only got 1 episode so far, so we have plenty to look forward to. 7 more to go.
And shows be loving the 8-episode thing. That's a thing.
I know.
Yeah, I
At
remember
least
when
they're full length.
Yeah, at least they're full length, fleshed out episodes.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.